right now, new allegations of a cover-up between the D.C. Police Department and federal agents.
Lawyers for a man allegedly shot at by police say that a federal agent fired shots at him earlier this month while he was unarmed during a traffic stop. But police made no mention of the shooting in charging documents.
And those allegations come 2.5 months after President Donald Trump ordered federal agents to patrol the city's streets under a crime emergency. DC News Now's Randy Bash joining us live outside police headquarters with more details on this and a call for transparency here, Randy.
Yes, and the man behind the wheel no longer facing charges for fleeing a traffic stop after those charges were dropped, but now seeking justice as his lawyers say a federal agent shot at him while he was unarmed and that officers tried to cover it up. These photos from his lawyers showing bullet holes left behind in Philip Brown's car window and passenger seat after his lawyers say a Homeland Security investigations agent shot at him while he was unarmed during a traffic stop on October 17th.
Covering up a crime is conspiracy. It is also accessory after the fact.
Our client was lucky to survive, and the next person may not be.
Charging documents for Brown, a 33-year-old black man, described the traffic stop during a collaborative enforcement effort between D.C. police and federal agencies, saying the white Dodge SUV he was driving along Benning Road didn't have a front plate and had dark tint on the windows, alleging that when officers and agents tried to pull him over, he revved the engine, drove toward officers standing nearby, and hit the car in front of him before he was taken into custody. Today, a DHS spokesperson telling D.C. News Now the suspect drove toward an officer and an agent in, quote, a deliberate attempt to run them down. The agent, in fear for his life and the lives of others and the public, fired defensive shots into the suspect's vehicle. His lawyers say there's no evidence of him crashing into another car, but there is evidence of the gunshots fired at Brown's car. Those gunshots not mentioned in the official charging document written by a D.C. police officer. Brown's defense claiming it's evidence of a police cover-up. The Washington Post reporting his defense says the officer who wrote the report told the court that he was told to leave the shooting out of the report.
How many times has the MPD hidden federal misconduct and federal violence in our streets since the surge began in August?
We heard back from D.C. police who confirmed they are investigating the HSI officer shooting, telling us this is not a cover-up, as they're the agency investigating the shooting and have been investigating since the night it happened. They tell us the case will be independently reviewed by the United States Attorney's Office.
MPD has stated in this case that they're going to conduct an internal investigation into this incident. What does an internal investigation mean when the shooter is external? When the shooter is the feds?
Now, the D.C. Police Department tells us the footage from this body-worn camera footage from this shooting involving a federal agent has not been released to attorneys because there is no longer a criminal investigation associated with this case after the charges against Mr. Brown were dropped. The footage may be released at a later time if it becomes evidence or discovery in another civil or criminal case.
Much love, family. Here we go again. Another young black man almost losing his life, and somehow the whole story gets flipped to protect the shooters. But this time, it ain't just local cops. It's federal agents involved. And just like always, the truth gets buried deep inside those so-called official reports. Let's break this down and get into it.
For a D.C. man, say a federal officer shot at him during a traffic stop in Northeast earlier this month.
This was the scene on October 17th. The man was arrested, but the charges against him were later dropped. And now his lawyers accuse D.C. police of a cover-up.
Rafael Sanchez Cruz on top of this story and digging into it tonight. Rafael.
Yeah, that's right. So the shooting involved a federal agent working alongside D.C. police as part of President Trump's Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful initiative. This is a copy of the court documents used to charge 33-year-old Philip Brown. And there's no mention of anyone firing a gun. Now, Brown's attorneys are asking why that key detail was left out.
Civil rights activists and attorneys for a D.C. man want answers after a federal agent shot a driver pulled over by D.C. police for a missing license plate and a dark tint on his windows. You can see the white Dodge Durango on the left side of your screen.
Had there been a passenger in that car, that passenger would have been shot.
It happened on October 17th on Benning Road Northeast. MPD says 33-year-old Philip Brown tried to flee and drove his car towards the officers.
A D.C. Superior Court judge dismissed the charge of fleeing against our client.
A Homeland Security investigations agent opened fire. An ICE spokesperson told WUSA 9 he felt fear for his life and the lives of others and discharged his weapon into the suspect's vehicle.
It's chest level shots into that passenger seat. And those gunshots went through the driver's side window. They missed. That's how he survived.
Bernadette Armand and Elizabeth Page White are the civil attorneys representing Brown. They believe at least 3 shots were fired.
We are providing the protection to Mr. Brown that he should have gotten, and we certainly will not have him speak until or unless he is ready.
The initial report from MPD doesn't mention any shots fired. The next morning, a second report does. Brown's attorneys say the MPD officer involved in the criminal case was instructed not to include those details.
In this case, rather than disclose the body-worn camera, the law enforcement and the MPD put it on lockdown so that his lawyers couldn't see it as a part of the criminal case.
They're demanding D.C. police release the body-worn camera footage, crucial evidence that could be used if they proceed with a civil lawsuit against D.C. police and the officers involved. MPD says the case is under investigation by their department and D.C.'s U.S. Attorney's Office.
What does an internal investigation mean when the shooter is external? When the shooter is the feds?
Some say what happened to Brown could be happening to others as federal agents continue working hand in hand with D.C. police.
How much more is happening that we don't know about?
Exactly.
Our streets are not safe.
Yeah, no answer from D.C. police whether any of the officers involved are suspended as these investigations continue. Now, Mayor Murrow Bowser did tell reporters just yesterday that the number of federal agents in D.C. has not significantly changed since the end of the federal surge. And tomorrow, the D.C. Council will hold a hearing to examine the relationship between D.C. police and federal law enforcement. Annie, Leslie can tell you that there are just dozens of people signed up, that there's no more capacity to hear people's input on this issue.
Yeah, likely a very, very, very busy hearing there.
Now think about that for a second. Federal agents fired shots at this man while he was unarmed, and somehow the entire incident just disappears from the report like it never happened. No mention of gunfire, no word about bullets ripping through his car, nothing. Just a clean little story labeled as a routine traffic stop. That's not confusion. That's not paperwork error. That's straight-up manipulation. They knew exactly what they were doing because leaving that out protects the system and hides the truth from the public. This is how they rewrite reality in real time, how they erase accountability while we're left asking questions they'll never answer. You don't forget gunshots. You cover them up when you don't want people to know what really went down. That's not justice. That's corruption disguised as procedure. And there it is again, that same tired line we've heard 1,000 times. He feared for his life. It's like the magic passcode every time an officer shoots an unarmed black man, and the system just nods along like that's enough explanation. But here's what doesn't add up. If this man was such a threat, if he really tried to run them down like they claim, then why did the judge drop every single charge? You can't say he's dangerous one minute and then clear him of everything the next.
Sanchez Cruz, he's live at the Wilson building with more on what Chief Smith says happened. So, Rafa, maybe you can fill us in a bit.
Yeah, so Chief Smith there saying that she was saying that there was absolutely no cover-up. She said that during a hearing today that was really unrelated to the topic. But Chief Smith says that what happened that day on October 17th is that the D.C. officers' supervisors were busy, so that MPD officer asked for the help of another fellow officer. And it was that officer who told him not to include the details about the shots fired. Now, Chief Smith says that she's refuting any of the reports saying that it was a supervisor that gave these instructions. So let's remind people about this case. So on October 17th, a Homeland Security Investigations agent shot 33-year-old Philip Brown during a traffic stop. An ICE spokesperson told WUSA 9 the federal agent opened fire because he was scared. Police say Brown tried to flee and drove towards the officers, but the case was dismissed by a D.C. judge. Now, the court documents to charge Brown never mentioned the shots fired. The following day after the incident, D.C. police did release a report indicating that the federal agent had fired his gun. Now, Chief Smith went off script and had this to say.
Let me just say it bothers me because here's the thing. Our officers work very, very hard. Here's a young man who has children, who has been threatened because of this. And it's just not fair to him. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to the officers. They work hard every single day. They have worked millions of hours in overtime for this city.
Yeah, you heard it there. Now, Chief Smith also refutes the allegations made by Brown's lawyers, saying that they don't have access to the body-worn camera footage. She says that MPD can't lock this footage down, that the video is accessible by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, this is under investigation both by MPD and by the U.S. Attorney's Office. But as you can imagine, still a lot of back and forth. And there was no clear answer really today whether she was okay that the other officer instructed the MPD officer who wrote the report to omit those details in the initial report that was released publicly and also that was given to the court systems to charge Mr. Brown. A lot of questions still in this case, but we'll stay on top of it.
That means something doesn't line up. So why hide the footage? Why keep the body cam locked away if it shows what they say it shows? Because deep down, they know the video would expose the lie. It would show that fear wasn't the reason, control was. They want you to believe their story without ever seeing the proof, and that's how they keep doing it again and again, hoping we just move on. But the question stands, if he did nothing wrong, what are they so afraid of us seeing? So now they admit an officer was actually told to leave out the part about gunfire. And we're supposed to believe that's not a cover-up? Seriously? That's like catching someone red-handed with your wallet and he says, "Oh, I was just holding it for you." It's insulting how predictable this has become. The same routine every time. First the lies, then the department's internal review, followed by a press conference where they say, "We're still investigating." But nothing ever changes. No accountability, no truth. The officer keeps his badge, the department keeps its image, and the man who was almost killed is left with scars, trauma, and zero justice. They'll file it away like it's just another case closed, while we're out here asking how this keeps happening in a country that claims to stand for justice. You see how slick that move is? They quietly drop the charges, then use that as an excuse to lock up the footage so nobody can see what really went down. That's not justice. That's strategy. That's how the system protects itself while pretending to play fair. And the wildest part? Even the black police chief of D.C. is standing behind this, defending what looks like a clear cover-up. It's painful to watch someone who looks like us, who knows the history, still side with the system that keeps targeting her own community. It's like watching someone tap dance for an audience that'll never see them as equal. This is how corruption hides. Behind polished press conferences, legal jargon, and smiling faces that tell you everything's under control. But deep down, we all know what this really is. A system built to protect power, not people. Here's where it gets even crazier. That federal agent wasn't just some random officer. He was part of Trump's so-called policing surge, a federal operation dropped right into the heart of the city. This wasn't some local misunderstanding. This was the federal government flexing power on its own citizens, and then wiping the slate clean like nothing happened. They left the violence completely off the books. No accountability, no transparency, just silence. That's not law enforcement, that's state power being turned against the very people it's supposed to protect. When federal muscle rolls through neighborhoods like their enemy territory, it's not about safety, it's about control. And the scariest part? They can do it again, anytime, anywhere, and still call it public safety. Chest-level shots. Let's be real. That's not a warning. That's shoot-to-kill intent. Nobody aims center mass unless they're trying to end a life. And yet, the first official report said nothing about gunfire, like the bullets just disappeared into thin air. Then, out of nowhere, a second report pops up the next day, suddenly remembering the shooting? Come on, that's not a mistake. That's manipulation. You don't forget pulling a trigger. You don't forget bullets flying. The only time people forget is when the truth makes them look guilty. It's the oldest play in the book. Rewrite the story, control the narrative, protect the badge, and hope the public forgets. But people are paying attention now. The internet remembers what they try to erase. Supervisors were busy? That's the excuse they're rolling with for leaving gunfire out of an official report? Nah, that's not oversight. That's a calculated move. That's damage control dressed up as paperwork. And what makes it even worse is watching a black police chief step in to defend the shooter instead of standing up for the truth. It's painful, but predictable. That's how the system protects itself. It props up black faces in high places, not to bring justice, but to give cover when white violence needs a spokesperson. It's all part of the playbook. Use someone who looks like us to calm the outrage, to make it look balanced. But the reality is, the truth keeps getting buried and the cycle of violence keeps spinning, all while the system smiles and calls it procedure. So here we are again, family. Another black man who somehow survives what feels like a federal assassination attempt, only for the system to try and bury it under layers of paperwork and polished statements. You already know how it goes. If he had died that night, the headline would have said he resisted arrest. But the truth always finds a way to surface. And when that footage finally drops, it's going to speak louder than any edited police report ever could. And real respect to those two powerful sisters, the attorneys who refused to let this story die in silence, who stood for justice when the entire system turned its back. Because let's be real. If he was guilty, why drop the charges? And if he wasn't, then why did they open fire on him? That question alone exposes everything wrong with how power works in America. This case shows how easy it is to erase violence with just one missing paragraph in a report. How truth disappears when it threatens authority. But that's exactly why we can't stay quiet. We have to keep speaking, keep exposing, keep pushing the truth forward until accountability stops being optional. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this just a mistake, or are we witnessing another calculated cover-up? Much love, my people. Stay safe, stay aware, and never stop asking questions. Please subscribe to the Untold Crime Chronicles, share this video, and help push this truth further. Because silence is how injustice wins. Much love, true lovers of truth.